There have been a lot of Rangers off days this season where we just really didn't want to talk about the game the day before. This, however, is not one of those. So we're going to talk about it. It's deGrom Day, dust settling day, as we get ready for the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Make that 4 in a row. Make it 5 out of 6 series wins for the Texas Rangers. And look who's back from Baltimore. Jeff is back from Baltimore. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. John Radigan here, Jeff Wilson there. We got TC in here today, and big day because Molly is back today. And later, she gets to sample one of our favorite sweet treats.
That's right. And we've sampled them enough, so we got to get some fresh blood and get some fresh opinions.
We got to let Molly take a try at the Wendy's Frosty coming up a little later. And yes, it is an off day for the Rangers. Like I said, there's so many off days where we're like, what are we going to talk about today, right? Yeah. But today's not one of them. There's a lot to talk about because the first thing you can do is go down more avenues that we didn't even have time to get down in our hour post-game show last night, Jeff, about Jacob deGrom's performance last night. Really one, I don't know if it's for the ages. I mean, I'm not sure it lives in, the annals of the organization because there have been some great pitching performances, but it was really great to see and really needed.
I think as far as Jacob deGrom and the Rangers are concerned, it's his best start.
Yes, agreed.
And of course it's been an abbreviated sample. He's up to, I guess that was his 16th start last night, the 3 I don't really consider starts last season, and the 6 in 23. So real quick, that's 25 starts. And this one was the best. I know he had some good ones in 23 before his arm gave out. He had a nice start against the Dodgers, a nice start at Yankee Stadium earlier this year, but this one was just straight pure dominance. He had his command. His pitches were doing all the things he wants them to do. The velocity was there. His mechanics were in place. And it was, what Jacob deGrom looked like when he's winning Cy Young Awards. And, the thing is, and this people have reminded me, this is his rehab year, basically.
Yeah.
He's going to get better. And, just hold that thought in your mind for a minute. But, we're at the halfway point. The Rangers are a game below 500. He's at 95 innings. That's something to watch.
Yes.
I don't think the Rangers intended on him throwing 190 innings. Maybe with the postseason involved, they did. But right now, it'll be curious to see how long they keep pushing him. But he says he feels fine. And he made the point that he was on normal rest, 4 days rest, felt fine, bounced back well from the Pittsburgh start, and had no immediate issues after the game. So I think if they keep him around 80 pitches, and that's the thing with Jacob, 80 pitches can get him to the 7th.
Sure, absolutely.
He can be so efficient. So if that's the number, if they're counting bullets and not necessarily innings or batters, then maybe they do let him approach it, but his workload going forward will be a second half storyline. But as for last night, why wouldn't you want to see it as often as possible?
Absolutely. And the reality is last night, as it turns out, since there was, the first hit of the game by Colton Cowser to lead off the 8th inning, he was only at 89 pitches at that point, and 85 has kind of been a magic number for Bruce Bochy. So he only exceeded it by 4. Last night wasn't the night that did some quote unquote, damage to the inning total, right? The pitching number of pitches and number of innings pitched total, amazingly. And to your point, it's because he was so efficient. He had 85 pitches through 7 innings last night. But the point is, if he pitches this many games in the second half, you would have to assume at 85 pitches a game, he'll roughly get to 100, and he'll get to 95 or 100 in the second half, and that is now pushing the limits of a guy in his rehab year.
Well, back in January at FanFest, kind of floating numbers at him, and like, and I'd heard, 20 to 25 is exactly where they'd want deGrom, and I kind of presented that to him. He said 30. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to miss a start. And he's more than halfway there, and feels great. The innings number I was told in spring training that was probably right for him was 170, so he's more than halfway there. But these things are all fluid, and again, if it's pitches and stress, are these stressful innings, the answer last night was no, not at all. Not until really he put the 2 guys on with the walks in the 7th, but he got out of that. So I just think that he's gonna probably exceed where they wanted him to go, yet they won't have concerns because how he's gone about get to that number. It's just been easy stuff, 6 and 80, 7 and 89, just pretty easy, very manageable workloads for a guy who has done this before. He's gone over 200 before.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but nevertheless, once you do it, you maybe subtract 10 or 15% from that number, and maybe that's kind of where the 170 comes in. But I just think that Jacob is not going to tell him no. He's going to be truthful, but
right.
If they say, "How do you feel, Jacob?" He's going to say, "Hey, I feel great. Give me the ball."
Right, and he's always going to want the ball. And the reality is, he is at this point, again, 37 years old. We saw it to a much greater extent, but it's similar with Max Scherzer. When you get to this stage in a long baseball career as a pitcher, the body.
Yeah.
And I believe that Jacob deGrom, maybe to, like I say, a slightly lesser extent than Max Scherzer, knows his body. And I think if his body starts to tell him, well, we better back off a little bit, they will. Now, I also think the Rangers are going to put into place as many things as they can to back off a little bit. To your point, starting him in the second series after the All-Star game, especially if by any chance he pitches in the All-Star game. He'll be there if he wants to be. But if he pitches, for goodness sake, of course they push him back, and maybe they do that even if not, because you want to put as many days between his starts as you can to give him the opportunity to have bullets left in the gun at the end of the season and into what they still hope will be an off season.
Yeah, and it's fun that we're having this conversation because the cynics in us all. We're probably like, oh, well, he's going to be hurt after 6 starts.
Sure.
Have to go on the injured list and all this stuff. Outside of Patrick Corbin, this guy's been their most durable starter.
Yeah.
He hasn't needed the injured list. He has answered the bell every time. He's felt great for every start, and it just keeps doing great things with the ball. So, as far as the post All-Star break, the first series is against the Tigers. All right. And, we all know the Tigers have the best record in baseball. Second series is against the Athletics. I don't know if you need him to, in against that division opponent, but it still wouldn't be bad. But then they go on the road to Anaheim and Seattle.
Sure.
And if you push him back to the Athletics series, let's say he starts the 5th game, he catches the Angels and the Mariners both.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that's the way they line it up so that they have him against teams who are ahead of them right now. The Angels are mildly ahead narrowly ahead, a half a game, I think. The Mariners, we'll see what happens this weekend and what happens with that margin. But they're, and Mike Maddox has got this all charted out.
Yeah,
I assure you, it's in pencil. But he has it all planned out, probably for the rest of the season. If I'm being dead honest, he probably does. He knows the big starts, who's coming, who's not. There's a Yankees-Phillies homestand right after that Anaheim Mariners trip over the trade deadline, that could be pretty important, and the Rangers might want to have him for 2 of those starts. So it's a juggling act, and you throw in a wild card like Jake Latz, who now could just drop into a rotation and just say, hey, let's give everybody a day off. Jake, you're up. And he appears as he's going to go out there and give you 5 or 6 good ones, maybe 7 now.
Yeah, and pretty much no-hit baseball, apparently. Yeah. So now, and so maybe you almost sort of in that realm, Jeff, quasi go with a 6-man rotation in the short term.
Yeah, I think they
I know they bristle at calling it that.
A 5+1. Yeah. They keep their 5 guys. And during a long stretch, they'll drop a guy in. And we talked about Cody Bradford missing the rest of the season. John Gray is being stretched out as a starter.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the emergence of Latz doesn't help change that. I wonder what prices at the trade deadline will look like if the Rangers decide they want to buy relievers and it's too prohibitive in terms of A, finances, and B, prospects. Then maybe they're like, we have a good one here, John Gray.
Sure.
So they could do that too. But they beyond really Latz and Dane Dunning, they have no real depth in the rotation. And when you go to AAA, I think Cole Drake will be moved up pretty soon because he's been so good at Frisco.
AA, yeah.
But and AAA is a different beast. You have the ABS and some things that can trip up guys. So we have to. You kind of have to let it play out, and that's the thing. Baseball's so damn long, and we're at the halfway point. There's 81 games to go. I mean, how much can happen in 81 games?
Yeah,
so much.
As much as we've wailed and gnashed our teeth and worried and concerned, and then a few days of happy, and then very unhappy throughout which seems like it's been a long time. There's another one of these to go, right? There's another half to go, and as we've said many times, I mean. In fact, remind me of the exact numbers, but the Rangers were 40-20 in 2023 after their first 60 games, and they were 2 games under 500 the rest of the way.
That's right.
So they could. They're 1 game under 500 after 81 games.
Yeah.
One little 40-20 stretch in here, and I'm not saying that's a given, but I'm saying it's a possibility. One little 40-20 stretch, and all of a sudden we're calling them the 27 Yankees again.
Yeah, and they hung on, basically. In
23.
They barely made the playoffs.
That's right. they really had to win 2 in Seattle. 2 in Seattle to make the playoffs?
2 to win the division.
2 to win, and 1 to make the playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, but there was still anyway, they barely got there, and then you saw what happened. So yeah, as good as the Rangers were, they weren't very good over the final 102 games.
Right.
And so you really... or whatever number it was. But the point is, and Chris Young is aware of that, and he understands that a season can turn like that. So that's why. And I know people sometimes get on us for being optimistic, but you just never know.
No.
And this team does have the potential. I mean, right now, based on the first half, are they a playoff team? No, they're not. They can't have a repeat half like that.
No way.
They have to be 10 or 15 games over probably, but they can do that.
Sure,
they really can.
Yeah, no question. And the thing that does make it intriguing is, of course, the fact that you're also, analyzing something such as the trade deadline, which helps you. It sort of accelerates decision-making processes, right? Like, okay, which one are we going to be in this second half of the season? And so it does. It makes it pretty interesting. It's a fun study, and it's one that we'll continue to be on top of all over it over the course of the program. Here, we're going to talk about exactly that. Of course, next up, we're going to talk about the series against the Mariners, and maybe get into Baltimore a little bit too, which is the second series within this homestand. We want to continue to gauge reaction to the first half of the season. We're seeing lots of it in the chat right now, so we'll chat about your chatting and talk about our reaction to your reactions over the course of the year. And then, of course, our cleanup segment is coming up later as well. So we're off and running on this Thursday edition of the DLLS Rangers podcast. We're thrilled to have you along with us. Keep the chats coming. We like to see you having your own conversations like you've been doing over the course of the show thus far. That's great. We'll talk more about that and more next. It's the DLLS Rangers podcast. And it's game time, which means it's time to check in with Nicole and find out which bands are coming to the area. Of course, this time of year that there are, very few other activities than baseball and bands. So make sure you go to Game Time and check that out. Now, you can already buy tickets to a Dallas Cowboys preseason game on Game Time for like $11. You can't buy a ticket tomorrow night for the game that will supposedly feature Paige Beckers against Caitlin Clark.
Oh,
however, and Clark, by the way, has a hammy. She's not going to play tonight, and they're not. And then she's day to day for tomorrow. So, but keep an eye on Game Time for that one.
Yeah,
because there may be a lot of stuff going on that secondary market right at the end. So GameTime.com, it's a great place to go. $20 off your first purchase. Code DLLS.
Yeah, last night Molly had a practice with a new softball team, a quasi tryout, and afterwards, seeing what all the other girls had, Molly declared that she needs a new first baseman's glove, a new roller bag,
wow,
and another bat. A 30-incher to go with her 31-incher.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta,
and it's like, all right, well, where are we going to get this money? Well, the folks at Monarch Money could help us out with that. Monarch Money, it helps you live the life you want to lead, not just trying to live life and survive. They set out plans for you, help you manage your money, and everybody could use a little help with doing that, especially with just crazy times and kids going to college and getting new floors from Empire Today and all that stuff. Monarch's going to help you sort it all out. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DLLS at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. 50% off DLLS.
Yeah, and you gotta be able to compete. Molly's right. You gotta have the right tools, the right equipment. So thank you, Monarch, for making sure the Wilsons can take care of Molly in that regard. And her money, and her parents' money.
That's right.
So, anyway, the series coming up against the Mariners, and I see you guys chatting all about it, and we appreciate that. And look, it's become obviously even more intriguing. Anytime you play against divisional foes, it's intriguing. If the Rangers had continued to play as they did against, I don't know, say the Royals or the Rays earlier this month, you might not feel like this is intriguing, but they're right back to the verge of 500. I'll grant you, they haven't been able to get over that 500 mark, here recently, but they're right back to the verge, which makes the series even more important because, as we always say, when you play against the division, Jeff, it's almost like it's a 2-game difference, right? You make up ground directly against that team.
Yeah, and especially when you're behind, this is where you hear the phrase "still control your own destiny."
Yep.
It's Rangers win tomorrow night with Nathan Eovaldi on the mound. Boom, they're a game closer. And then conversely, a Mariners series win puts a dent in things for the Rangers. But I don't know if I like I like the schedule that you play everybody in both leagues, but they did it at the sacrifice of division games. And, it was 19, now it's 13. And I wonder if that's enough. And it has been in the past, but it seems like in this format, you really have to rely on other teams. And because you have fewer opportunities to go head-to-head, you got to cash in when you do have the chances. And we talked about last night how miserable the Rangers play at Seattle. So to get the Mariners here, they need to win the series. They need to keep winning the series. And it won't be easy, not at all, with the pitchers that the Mariners are going to throw out. along with the Babe Ruth, Cal Raleigh. It's tough, but beyond Cal, who scares you in the lineup? I guess Rodriguez does.
Yeah, I mean, he sure should. I don't know that he does.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and so I know the Rangers are looking forward to the series. They understand who they're playing and what's at stake. They're going to recharge today with the day off. Hope it doesn't sap them of the momentum that they started to generate Tuesday and carry through last night. I know some people don't believe in momentum, but baseball players do.
They do.
And if Eovaldi can get them off on the right foot, hey, they might be on a roll.
I put it in one of the descriptions of the show today. Baseball, as Earl Weaver famously said, or rather momentum, is the next day's starting pitcher, right? And so, next day's starting pitcher for the Rangers or against the Rangers is Logan Gilbert, right?
Yeah,
he's pretty good. Take a look at the rotation as it stacks up for this series, and we talked about it last night. But in case you missed it, so it's Eovaldi against Gilbert, it's Rocker against Brian Wu, and then Wiley veteran Luis Castillo against still another up and coming rookie in Jack Leiter. And so Jeff, that rotation, that lineup of three pitchers in a row, you almost feel like, the Mariners have a pitching advantage in 2 of 3. And the reality is we don't feel that the opposition has had the pitching advantage in very many games this season.
Yeah, and Gilbert's dealt with some injuries, and really the Mariners rotation has dealt with some injuries, but he's back, and it might be a mental thing, whether he's hitting his spots or not. He's Logan Gilbert, and he's been shutting down the Rangers.
Yeah,
and so they may be hey, geez, but he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings his last time out to the Cubs. The Cubs can hit. He lost a game 2-0, but he has been kind of building. Hasn't really gone too deep in games. Of course, if the Mariners have a lead, they have a really good bullpen.
Yeah.
So it's not just the rotation you have to worry about. But this is a guy who, again, just sticks it to the Rangers, and so they, have to scratch and manufacture runs. If Wyatt Langford's given a day off again Friday to monitor his side tightness, or if he goes on the injured list, you drop my guy Sam Haggerty in there, and Haggerty's a pest. But I think the Rangers have started to appreciate the value of manufactured runs. You can think of a lot of sacrifice flies here recently that have gotten runs home, and
the classic in Game 2 of the Baltimore series, which is all inspired by Haggerty.
Yeah,
a
right.
walk, two steals, and came home on a sac fly.
Yeah, and there was another last night. Adolis had one last night. Simeon seems to be a guy that can get you a fly ball. So there are just ways to go about it, like we talked about last time, where you don't have to hit the 3-run homer. You don't have to sit back and wait. Speaking of Earl Weaver, you don't have to wait for that 3-run homer. But Gilbert in his career against the Rangers, 193 opponent's batting average. That's pretty good.
Yes,
that'll win you some ball games. ERA of 2.54 and 14 starts, so it's not like it's a small sample size. He's trouble for these guys. But again, just manufacture some runs. Yeah.
Do the little things. Do the small. Play some small ball, as we've called it over the years. It's interesting though that David Murphy. He doesn't do as many games with Dave Raymond, but he did this whole road trip. So watching him, it's interesting how he will, he approaches it from a hitter, and he looks at a hitter's reaction to any given pitcher. And I think often right after a pitching change, I hear this from him. But David says, I don't think whoever is picking up the spin on his ball very well, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if maybe across the board, right, there's a guy like a Logan Gilbert who's good against everybody, but seemingly pretty great against the Rangers. And so maybe there's a bunch of guys on that team that don't, quote unquote, pick up the spin on his ball, right? Get comfortable in there against a guy like Logan Gilbert.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. David's pretty good, when he goes in and talks to the manager with us. He asks, pretty insightful baseball strategy questions, and yeah, and he can have these conversations with guys, and and he's probably been there before, not being able to recognize a guy's spin. And, it's like, boy, I've had some swings like that against guys that I didn't know it was coming. And there's different horses for different courses, things like that. One thing about David, though, when David was in his time with the Rangers, the Mariners had Felix Hernandez.
Yeah.
And David was one of the few guys on those teams that could handle prime Felix Hernandez. And, a lot of it is because they faced him so often.
Sure.
And you hope that maybe it gets to that point with a Logan Gilbert or a Luis Castillo, where you've seen them so many times, what they do, what they do to you, and you're able to take advantage of that. Because ultimately, if you go back and look at Hernandez's career numbers against the Rangers, they were really good.
Sure. And
they didn't finish that well because they had seen him so many times. Murphy, I think, knocked him out of a game once with a line drive back up the middle. And it's weird, like Adam Rosales. He owned Chris Sale, for crying out loud. So Murphy was better than Adam Rosales. But my point being, maybe after 14 starts, maybe you start to get a little more familiarity if Gilbert isn't changing what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think you could argue that as good as Murph was against King Felix, it was actually Adrian Beltre that owned him, because Adrian would get in his head, man.
Yeah,
that was so much fun to watch, and you would see Hernandez come unraveled a little bit sometimes because of some of those antics.
There was a start where I think it was the same start where Felix struck out Adrian in his first at bat, and Adrian just looked silly. Terrible swing.
Yeah.
And Felix kind of laughed at him and all this stuff as he walked off the field. And later in the game, Adrian had a home run, head down, didn't look at his guy, didn't say a word. But things had kind of fallen apart on Felix at the time. So there was a time to rub it in, and there was a time to this is my friend, my former teammate. I need to take care of him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, and one final thought about that 19, and I've seen people commenting 19 was too many. One final thought about that. I don't think 13 is too few. I like 13. I hate, though, that generally, like this season, the Rangers close against Miami, Minnesota, and Cleveland.
Yeah, that's
now that sucks. Granted, they do have Houston for 6 in September.
Yeah,
just before those three final series, they have Houston for 3, and then they have Houston earlier in the month at home for 3. So I like, at least because, again, obviously, clearly, the Astros are the team everybody's going to be chasing again. So I like that they have 6 opportunities there late in the season at the end of the year to make up ground there. But I just hate that they finished the season against Miami, Minnesota, and Cleveland.
Yeah, that is definitely a flaw. If the division races are going to be tight, and a lot of them are right now.
Sure,
a lot of them are tight. You need to let them duke it out themselves. And this is where you have to rely on other teams to do your dirty work.
Yeah.
You can only control what you can control, and that's the opponent in front of you. But it sucks to watch the scoreboard. You'd rather be able to do it yourself.
No doubt about it. And you're always like, or you win your game. And I know the reality is all you can do is win your game. Just keep winning your games and you're okay. But you win your game and the other team's playing somebody out on the West Coast, and you're like, as a fan, I got to wait and, stay up late or either find out in the morning what happened in that game in order to determine, if my team made up and any ground or as much ground as they might have. So I don't like that aspect of the new schedule. I think 13 is a nice number, though, to play against your divisional opponents, and it gets you a nice steady dose of them. And to Jeff's point about, like, say, Logan Gilbert in this case, plenty of opportunity to see Logan Gilbert and to figure Logan Gilbert out, and hopefully maybe the Rangers have done that. Maybe they've broken through in some mental way against him as well as a team, and we'll see if that happens when they face him tomorrow night in Arlington. So more coming up as we talk about sort of the first half of the season and the reaction to the first half and how people are feeling, and we take your pulse, and frankly, you can take ours next. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast.
Molly.
And it's time for Molly to sample this beautiful Frosty.
All right, this here is Molly. She is my daughter, and she likes ice cream, and I don't think she's had one of these Frosties yet. So, Molly, take a bite.
Is this the Oreo, Jeff?
This is, I don't know. Maybe.
'Cause,
that doesn't look very Oreo-y.
I think it might be the Oreo. What do you think, Molly? It's good. You're darn right it's good.
Yep.
She didn't even hesitate.
Take it from Molly Wilson. If you love Frosty's Classic, you can have it if you want. Don't eat the whole thing. Frosty flavors. We have some big news. There's all new Frosty Swirl and Frosty Fusion flavors you can get in either chocolate or vanilla. It's the same treat you've always loved, but it's kind of been rebooted. All right. Frosty Swirl, strawberry, brownie batter, caramel crunch, Oreo brownie, Pop-Tarts. Those are the fusions. It's just good stuff. So anyway, whatever flavor you're craving, odds are we have got a Frosty for you. So clock in for a sweet treat anytime, including midnight or later with Wendy's all new Frosty flavors of refresh on a classic. Gotta be Wendy's. Participating U.S. Wendy's hours may vary by location.
No new refresh on Bud Light. It's the
don't need
same,
one.
and that's a good thing. It's been good. It's always been good. It's still good. It is a great summertime beer because it's light. It's easy to drink. Anheuser-Busch is so good about basically concentrating on their four main ingredients, and they do it well. It's my go-to beer, especially in the summertime, and you obviously should avail yourself to some of this Bud Light too. Maybe I should bring one of my kids. Of course, my kids are both legal. Maybe bring the granddaughter.
Yeah,
out.
we
Hey,
can't
try the Bud Light.
Can't let Molly try the Bud Light.
Put it in her little bottle there. Yeah, so anyway, it's just so easy to like. Bud Light is always brewed with those four simple ingredients for a clean and crisp taste. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy responsibly. 21 and over, please. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri. This segment, this show really has, I think, in some ways spoken to what I was thinking about as I kind of pondered the topics for today's show, Jeff, and that is just where do we stand as, if you will, a fan base? Look, that's what we are. I mean, we're obviously cut our teeth in journalism, and we cover the team, and it's not easy for us to be totally fans, but we definitely try to think as the fans do, and we definitely appreciate the fans' thoughts, comments, all that kind of stuff, and I just wonder where everybody. I wondered this morning at halfway through where everybody is on how this team is, and I see, again, it's personality related too, some ways, but I see people all over you on Twitter because the reports on Wyatt Langford, and I know it was a battle you got into yesterday. And I see people concerned that, and we got tweeted at about this, concerned that in the month of June, the Rangers haven't won a series against a 500 team, and the Angels have won 2 series against 500 teams. By the way, the Rangers have only played 2 series against teams that are 500. Now, the bad news, and I saw somebody point this out in the chat, one of those 2, they got swept by Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember. Oh, and then, no, the other one they lost.
The Royals were below 500.
Yeah, the Royals were below 500, so that wasn't so maybe they've only played 1.
Yeah, they're, like we said, they're in a friendly part of their schedule.
Yeah.
The Mariners
they should have made up more ground. I mean,
yeah, but I think they've gone 11-7 in the 18 games against the teams below 500. They still have the Mariners, who are not below 500.
Right.
Then they'll play the Orioles again. Then they play the Padres, not below 500, and then they go to Angels, who are at 500,
right at
I believe.
Yep.
So again, it's still a pretty friendly portion here. Opportunities where it's not friendly with the Astros and the Angels and the Mariners. So I think my takeaway is that fans are confused about this team. They see the games like last night and the fight that they showed Tuesday. on the heels of 2 eggs, just 2 absolute duds. And it's like, what team is this? And that's probably why they're right around 500.
True.
They haven't figured it out either. And of course, the general manager and president of baseball operations, sorry, and then the manager are going to be pumping sunshine. They have to believe this is the team they assembled. Why they assembled it, because of just the quality players and quality people they are. You can't argue really with anything except for the offense, and unfortunately, it's such a huge facet. You just can't ignore it. But like, Rangers starting pitching, great. Bullpen, really good. Base running, fantastic. Defense, very good, especially of late, especially since that Tampa series. And like I said, right after that White Sox series where they had that bad 6th inning defensively that cost them the Saturday game, you remember the bad defensive games because they're such a rarity.
Sure.
And so, for 3 of them to get lumped together in that Tampa series really stunk. But since then, it's been tight. It's been clean baseball. The Royal series, the offense disappeared, but everything else you could argue was not bad.
No.
So, yeah, they're just missing the one huge facet. And if it's starting to come around, and with the emergence of Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia, you start to think maybe it is with Josh Smith, the American League Player of the Week 2 weeks ago, still, when he plays, doing good things. With Corey Seager, just his presence alone helps.
Right.
He took a walk last night. That was a big deal, or maybe it's Tuesday, whatever it was. It was a big deal in the game, and he's getting more hits. He's starting to come around, and so you can say, yeah, there is some progress offensively. The question is, can it be consistent? Can they score against good teams? Because they're below 500 against teams that are 500 or better, and you got to beat them too.
Sure.
And so we're going to find out. This weekend will be another good test, another checkpoint, to see if they're for real or if they aren't. But Marcus Semien said, you don't just take off. You got to take these things game by game. Even if you want to go macro, inning by inning, pitch by pitch, things like that, and go to the next one. So you can't really force a takeoff, but if you do the things right more often than not, game to game, you'll look back and you say, hey, we kind of took off. But you have to see it to believe it. And right now I can understand why people are hesitant to pull the trigger.
Sure, understandably, 100%. The reality is that thing you talked about with regard to defense, that is absolutely one of the things within the control of the team, right? Yeah. That is something you can control. And so then it begs the question, can they control more? And I think the answer is yes to this too. But can they control the offense when it's not, as Jim Rockford wants, hitting lots of home runs like you normally expect from the Rangers, right? Can you work those at-bats? I think we've seen it more and more. We've seen them trying to do it. We've lamented it for a long time this season, but maybe, again, a game like the one on Tuesday night will help inspire them or re-inspire them or remind them that is a way, that is something you can control and a way you can ignite an offense even if the slug isn't there.
Yeah, and the Rangers have tried a lot of different things. They've tried different personnel. They've sat guys.
Changed hitting coaches.
Change hitting coaches. They've tried a lot of different things to jumpstart the offense because, again, this isn't just a 2025 problem. It wasn't this bad last season, but nevertheless,
it was bad.
It wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And so, they've even tried. I found out yesterday because I talked to Bruce Bochy about it. Maybe it was a Tuesday. They've even tried taking pitches. Taking a strike, trying to be patient. And he said, well, then all of a sudden your guys aren't aggressive.
Yeah.
He wants them aggressive, even if it's the first pitch. But there are times when not to be aggressive. The other night when it's hotter than snot out there and Patrick Corbin is having these quick innings and wants to go in and chill out and relax, get out of the heat, they have a 5-pitch inning.
Yeah.
it was two pitches, and Sam Haggerty swung at the first pitch. Needed to take a pitch there. But at the same time, ordinarily, Bruce Bochy doesn't want to see them miss what could be their pitch. I think they don't necessarily let it travel deep enough to know for sure if it is their pitch. They don't pick up the spin. They don't recognize that the pitch is going to, if it's a cutter, just shoot right outside off the plate and you're going to hit off the end of the bat or hit a weak grounder. They're just some things that might be in, something that needs to be adjusted batter to batter and, within the game. But, in-game adjustments, if you see that a guy has walked 3 guys in 3 innings, maybe you make him throw you a strike. Just kind of react to what's happening. And again, that goes all the way back to what Brett Boone said the day he was hired. Watch the game.
Yeah. Sit
and watch the game and recognize what's happening right now. So there are things that they can do to improve, obviously. I do think that Wyatt Langford, if he isn't injured, could use a few days off, a la Adolis and Josh Young. Although Bruce Bochy said yesterday he was happy with the way Wyatt's been going. He's hit a lot of balls on the screws that have just been right at guys. But I think he's also struck out a little bit too much. So we'll see how this all plays out. But of late, probably beginning with, I would say the National Series, the second game of the National Series, after they got shut out in the opener, I would say since then it's been better offense.
Yeah,
there have been stinkers in there for sure. But you know what? Every team has stinkers.
Yeah, and going all the way back to that St. Louis series, I remember saying, look, if you get a good game on Friday and a good game on Sunday, which is I think how that one played out, and you get shut out on Saturday, it's like, it's okay, I can handle that if I have good games bookending that game, right? So same thing with really Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Each game had a dud, or each series had a dud. Game 3 in Pittsburgh, game 1 in Baltimore maybe made it feel worse.
Right. Back to back.
But each game had one dud, and the other 2 were, again, the Tuesday night game in Baltimore, I wouldn't call an offensive masterpiece, but it was downright exciting.
Yeah. They had to score in a variety of ways.
That's exactly right.
They needed their speed, or not that Corey Seager's fast, but he scored twice from second base on base hits.
Yeah.
And then, Haggerty stealing the 3 bases and after the 8th inning.
Corey Seager stealing it. It didn't amount to anything, but he stole in the 9th after he singled. But
Semien scored on a grounder to the shortstop on a contact play. Evan Carter scored what was the winning run on a contact play.
Yep.
Fast guys can help you beat a team, and the Rangers really study these pitchers. I talked to Haggerty about it, and he talked about the tendencies that Soto had, and they played out. They played out exactly like he had studied, and so that's why he was able to take those bases.
Those scouting reports are so important, and the reality is Baltimore is not a good defensive team.
Right.
And the line always is among coaches and managers and all of it is make them make the play.
Yeah.
And the kid Holiday almost did make the play with, by the way, the help of a third string catcher. Let's not forget Adley Rutschman and his backup were both out for the Orioles this week. So, but anyway, that's fine. They almost made the play. But on the other one, on the one where Semien scored on a drawn-in infield, it wasn't even close.
Gunnar Henderson's a good defensive player, and it was a crap throw.
Wasn't even close.
Seager scored on a throw from Lariano that he ultimately got the error, but Gary Sanchez, the catcher, who's probably the worst catcher in the game.
Yeah.
He didn't handle it. If he had handled it, Seager's probably out there. But force them to make the perfect throw. Put the pressure on the defense, and a lot of times they're going to screw it up.
Absolutely.
That was the Ron Washington theory. Make these guys have to think about what they're doing. Make a split-second decision. Maybe they throw it to the wrong base,
right?
And he gets second. Last night, I believe it was last night, Seager went first to third on a Simeon single.
Yeah.
Well, they threw to third to get Seager. Simeon took second.
Sure.
Guess who scored a run?
Simeon. Yeah. And, even to your point and Wash's point, like sometimes just making him think, I think it was this series,
I screwed that up. He didn't score a run. But anyway, he could have.
This series, not a super deep ball to right field, but there's somebody tagging, I think it might have been Adolis, whoever it was, tagging at third, and their right fielder catches it, and he's going to make a play to the plate, and he just dropped it in the exchange and then looked down, and I'm just like, those little things happen to when you make the team make the play.
Yeah, and knock on wood, the Rangers, since that Tampa series, have been making the plays defensively, and don't think that doesn't contribute to these historic ERAs that the rotation and pitching staff have been posting.
Sure, and they'll tell you the same thing. So anyway, that's a little bit of the pulse of the Rangers at the halfway point. Let's see what happens in the second half of the season, and the discussion may be vastly different, come the end of the year. Of course, it could get vastly different come the end of the next month, but we'll decide. We'll see. We'll let you know. Let's put it that way. More coming up, though, as we get to our cleanup segment. Lots of cool things to talk about there. Some not so cool. We'll get to it next. It's the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Hey, why don't you become a diehard?
Yeah.
Seems like a good time to do it, Jeff.
Unbelievable time to do it.
Yeah.
$36 for 12 months and a free shirt. The shirts are $34.99. So, you do the math however you want to do it. It works out to be a hell of a deal.
It does.
You get to read not just my stuff, but Clarence's stuff with the Cowboys and Tim Cato over there on the Mavs and Sam Nestor on the Stars. I don't know if you heard this or not, but the Mavs had the first pick in the draft last night.
Did they really?
Yeah, they took a guy named Cooper Flagg.
Wow. I hear he's pretty good, if I remember correctly.
I think he's good, and he's young. He's a teenager.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? So anyway, we were all over that, and I'm sure some of you guys checked in on the podcasts. Podcasts are free, but to read what we've written, not free, but like $3 a month is like free, especially it's more than half off our normal price. So scan the QR code or go to alldls.com/join and become a diehard right now.
And if you do that, you will also get 20% off all of the merchandise that you may want to buy and all of the events that we will be doing. The first big one of those is this trip to Las Vegas. The Cowboys crew is going to Las Vegas in November for a game against the Raiders. It's the first time the Cowboys will have played there, and you can go with. It's a 3-day, all-inclusive, all-expense paid. You pay the expenses, but it's like once you paid, right? And you obviously get to go and hang out with our crew and then go to the Cowboys Monday night game against the Las Vegas Raiders, and it'll be a great time. And you get 20% off the fee on that trip by simply becoming a diehard. All right, our cleanup segment starts with great news about a local kid who we always root for, except when he's playing against the Rangers, and that's Bobby Witt Jr. They did, I guess, the show that Mark DeRosa's on the MLB Network. Mark, of course, is the manager of Team USA.
Yeah.
And they hit 1,000 episodes today.
Oh, okay.
And sort of to celebrate that, D-Row had a huge announcement, which was Bobby Witt Jr. will be playing for him in the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah, Bobby was on the team in 23. Trey Turner was the starting shortstop. Bobby was basically a pinch runner. He had 2 at-bats. He's going to have more than 2 at-bats this go-round.
In the first game. Yeah.
Hopefully the first 3 innings. So that's good news. And, back to my the good times at the Fort Worth paper. His senior year leading up to the draft, I kind of followed his journey through the state playoffs with Colleyville Heritage. They ended up winning. I watched him once live, talked to him after a practice and again after a game, and phoned him a few times. They were on the bus riding back. It was nice to get to know him. I was from here to TC the day he was drafted, sitting on the floor in their living room.
Oh, were you
while
really?
He was on the couch
cool.
with his family.
Yeah.
It was just a cool experience, and It's nice to know him. He helps us out with Do It for Dirt. He's just a solid guy, and of course, they don't come any more solid than Bobby Sr.
No,
he's salt of the earth, a great man, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So he will be a fine representative for the United States in that tournament.
My quick Bobby Witt Sr. story. I just started working at Channel 5. It was a strike year. I'd never met any of the players. The strike breaks. They send me immediately to spring training. First thing I cover in the Port Charlotte, Florida area was a Rangers golf tournament. Bobby Witt literally meets me on a tee box. Hi, I'm John Radigan. I cover the team now for NBC5. Hey, John. And I was with one of the photographers, Kerry
Jan.
Smith.
Yeah, I can't do a Boston accent.
Yeah. And so he comes, so we go follow him. He said, yeah, follow me around, no problem, So we follow him around for a couple holes. It's time for the cart girl to come around. And he says, yeah, John, you want a drink? You want a Diet Coke or whatever, And I'm like, what a good dude.
Yeah.
that's what, he just met me.
No,
and we became friends and still are ever since.
We had TR on last week, and Bobby Witt is TR's favorite guy that he's ever dealt with.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh,
Bobby
that's
Witt's
great.
number one.
Yeah, I did not realize that about TR, but that's great. Very cool. So, and we'll be obviously, especially in the WBC, we'll be rooting for him. How about that matchup yesterday between the rookie and the rookie who doesn't allow hits apparently, and Paul Skeens? What do we call him? Mizorowski?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to call him.
Mizorowski? I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Let's call him that young guy in Milwaukee.
The rookie in Milwaukee. What a great matchup it was. Mizorowski, however we say it, got the win. It was a 4-2 victory. But, man, this kid's backstory is unbelievable. His dad has Parkinson's. So he went out and got diagnosed when he was in, I don't know, junior high maybe or high school at the latest, and so he went out with a pair of cleats that paid tribute to his dad. Take a look there, and there's a picture of him and his dad, Jacob and his dad, and you can tell if you've ever known anybody who had Parkinson's, you can tell his dad, is just, I mean, it's tough, man, and it's really real because the brain's still working, right? But the body is betraying you, and it's just. But Jacob says, man, that his dad is still involved in every aspect of his game and every aspect of his career. But I'm thrilled that he, was able to pay tribute to his father in that way. And really, much as we enjoy watching Paul Skeens win, I'm kind of glad to see the kid get a victory. I thought that before the game, Milwaukee's got a better team than Pittsburgh. So if these two are going to go head-to-head, and if they're both that good, Milwaukee's going to win the game. That's what happened.
Yeah, but, they got him for 4 in 4 innings. And Skeens didn't make
He didn't
it
have
to
his
fifth.
best.
And, Jacob, he's being, very tight leash being kept on him, as the Brewers are apt to do with their young pitchers. They got to protect their investments because they don't have the money to go out and get guys. Otherwise, they'd still have, Corbin Burns. They would have been able to re-sign CC Sabathia.
I was going to say they might still have CC.
Yeah. So
still have Prince.
So it's just the reality. But hopefully next year, or maybe even later this year, they'll let him maybe see the sixth. Say, hey, what can you do over 6 innings? But it's cool, and he throws super hard. Just such a baby face. Skeens is kind of manly, with the mustache, but he still has youthful characteristics in his face. So don't be fooled. These are young guys, and that division with Hunter Green in there. Yeah, not as young anymore, but still a hell of a pitcher who throws 98, 100. So those are some good arms right there.
No doubt about it. Juan Soto had his 27th multi-home run game yesterday. The youngest player. He's under 27, Jeff. And he's had 27 multi. Nobody's ever done that.
Yeah, that's why he got the money.
Yeah.
Honey, it's he it seems like he's starting to pick it up. He was getting booed early on for his performance. Maybe not booed, but kind of getting dragged. Oh, this is what $750 million.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and look, there's an S ton of pressure on a young man.
Sure.
Again, he's 26, and that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody just to sign your name on that contract.
Yeah. He's a young 26 too. I mean, it's an October birthday. So
Yeah.
This is a young guy. But the Mets are riding high right now, and guy can play.
Yeah.
He can hit. He
Yeah.
can hit. He can really hit.
Yeah, speaking of good division races, that one could really be good down the stretch. And speaking of another team in that division that has underachieved, but who knows, maybe they'll come around too, is the team hosting the All-Star game this year. And Jeff, one of their own has been, I think, the first to officially confirm to the Home Run Derby, Ronald Acuna Jr.
Well, look what he's done since he's been back. He is making up for lost time. I don't know if he's on the All-Star ballot or not, but it's good that the hometown team's probably favorite player will be involved in the home run weekend, even if it is just the Derby. The guy's such a talent, former MVP. And what he's doing now, gosh almighty, pretty terrific. His younger brother, Luis Angel, who was the Rangers prospect they traded for Max Scherzer, just got sent down to AAA, which, God, is it still Norfolk with the Mets? Anyway, he's on his way down to AAA after spending the whole season with him to this point. And it's hard for a young guy to be a bench player. It just is. Hopefully he gets squared away. Syracuse, there we go. Norfolk, I'm talking Dwight Gooden.
Tidewater Tides, yeah.
Anyway, he's he just needs to play every day, basically. That's the. But he and his brother are entirely different, like personalities. Very quiet. Luis Angel is. Ronald's a little more flamboyant. They have different mothers. But still, they are like brothers and grew up together.
That's
and
great.
All that stuff. Yeah,
that's great. So Clayton Kershaw, perhaps you've heard of him. He is now, Jeff, just 8 strikeouts shy of a huge milestone, 3,000, which means he's only 2,008 strikeouts shy of the one I got to see Nolan Ryan achieve, which was 5,000. I mean, think of the career Clayton Kershaw has had.
Yeah.
And he's sneaking up on 3,000.
Right.
And to put, sometimes I got here and Nolan was doing these things, right? So it's like, 5,000 strikeouts. 300 wins. Yeah.
Right.
My God. And then I never remember the exact number that Nolan ended up with, but
57-14.
57-14. So there you go. Unbelievable.
I mean, and even if Kershaw's been healthy, let's say the last 3 or 4 years, it's still probably only
maybe going for
3,400. Yeah. He's not anywhere near 4,000. No.
Yeah. So, but that said, what a cool number to have. I mean, to surpass that 3,000 strikeout is going to be a big day for Clayton.
I think he would join Scherzer and Verlander as active guys above 3,000, and Verlander's hasn't won a game this year. He's been hurt. He just had his second baby with Kate Upton. Tough duty there.
Yeah, boy, that is tough. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, and
what did Scherzer do last night?
Yeah, I don't know. Anybody?
He pitched.
Leon, you got it?
Let's look. I'm looking. Stand by.
Well, whatever. I'm sure his
pitched.
thumb is going to turn up bad here in a day or two, which I don't want to happen because I liked Max. He's a good guy. I thought Scherzer a little rusty in 5-inning return to Blue Jays rotation. How rusty was he?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Rusty enough. And again, we know he's battling. We know he's battling Verlander every step of the way. All right, real quick, I hate this. Ketel Marte was driven to tears by a fan the other day, and Torey Lovullo and Jeff Bannister wanted no part of it. They helped make sure the fan got tossed out. take a look at this video that came to us, and you see Banny. That's Lavello there. Now here comes Banny up the steps too. Like it's that guy. He's looking for security. It's that guy right there, and that guy got tossed out. And the word is he's been. And again, I don't know how they uphold this, but he's been banned from Major League Baseball games indefinitely.
Good.
And should be.
Yeah. I mean, come on,
this poor young man's mother died, and he said whatever he said to trigger tears from this guy. That sucks, man. I know you paid your money, and but you have a right to boo, and
doesn't give you a right to be a dick.
You don't have a right to do exactly right. You do not have a right to do that. So good for Banny, and I promise you this. I promise, Banny's bigger than he looks.
Yeah,
I promise you that guy's glad Banny didn't come up into them stands after him. Banny's always looking for a fight anyway.
He is.
He always is looking for a fight. So anyway, that's that. That's the show. We take the next couple of days off. It's going to be a fun weekend, though, as Elvis is inducted into the Texas Rangers Hall of Fame. We'll see what they do against the Mariners in the next 3 games. We'll be back on Sunday with a post-game edition of the DLLS Rangers podcast that wraps up the series against Seattle. Thanks for joining us on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.